we're gonna go team by team. I'm gonna put the rosters on the screen, and we're just gonna talk about it. Okay. So I hope that is of interest to you guys. All right. Let me just pull up. Let me just pull up some teams first, and I think we're gonna start with. I think we're gonna start with the Seattle Storm. All right. Actually, no. Let's start with the Atlanta Dream. All right, guys. Let's talk about this. Okay. All right. Let's start with the Atlanta Dream. Let's talk about the players who are currently on the roster and who I think are going to get cut before the season actually starts. Now, a little bit of a level set of sorts for the Atlanta Dream. So the Atlanta Dream, they did add some new players to their squad this year, including Tina Charles, who is making her return back to the WNBA. They also had quite a few in terms of South Carolina players on the roster, though some have gotten cut already. But let's sort of walk through the players on the team. A thing to note, guys, is that it does look like the Atlanta Dream are going to be able to have 12 players on their roster. Some teams, due to salary cap stuff, they can't have 12 teams. To me, it does look like they are able to have 12 teams. So I think they will make sure all 12 spots are filled. Last year, they played pretty well. They played very well, actually, last year. They won games that I didn't think they were going to win. You have a leader in Ryan Howard who was just balling out of control. She is phenomenal. You also have, you also add some players like Ariel Powers, Jordan Canada, Tina Charles. And so I think Atlanta is going to be a pretty fun team to watch. And yeah, we're gonna talk about it. Okay, we're gonna talk about this because there's some players on the team that are gonna for sure have to get cut. Okay, there's some players that are for sure gonna get cut. All right, so let's go down the list. Also, a thing to note, guys, is that that the roster currently has a Destiny Henderson on it. Destiny Henderson was waived as of 5 hours ago. She was waived from the team. She's still on the roster on the website. Why exactly? I don't know. But yeah, she is still on the website, though she has been waived. All right. So let's just sort of talk about how many players are on the team. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And they actually just waived Destiny Henderson. So the way we're at right now, yes, FM Henny was cut. Yeah, Henny was cut. And because I like to show proof, I don't like to just be saying stuff. I want to show proof. So here's the proof. I'm going to Atlanta Dream's website right now. There you have it right there. It says the Atlanta Dream have waived Destiny Henderson and Khadijah Cave. The organization announced today. Yep. So she was waived. All right, she was waived as of 4 p.m. 4 p.m. Central Time when that was put out there. Okay. So the way the Atlanta Dream is constructed right now, they're actually fine. They don't actually have to cut anybody. But I think what Tanisha Wright's probably going to do is she's going to look at the landscape of who's getting cut from other teams, and she's going to finalize this roster at the last minute. Right now, the players are safe on the squad. But again, it depends on who's getting cut from other teams. Yes, teams are looking to find talent in their training camp. But they're also, good and well, these teams are also looking at other teams to see, how are those bench players playing in the preseason games? And you can bet your bottom dollar that if a player that the Atlanta Dream feels like they need gets cut, they're going to waive one of their players and get that player. Do I anticipate that happening? No. I think it's possible, though. But the way that the Atlanta Dream is currently constructed, There will likely be no more cuts happening. They are now at 12 players with Destiny Henderson getting cut. So I think this is likely going to be. I think this is likely going to be the final roster. If they were going to get rid of a player, I would say it would be Lorella Kubai. But they would have to get another big man if they're going to cut her. I don't think they do, but I think it's a possibility. I feel like that's the only player that would go for this team. All right, let's talk about the Indiana Fever. Du jour says Mr. President is very upset about Henny getting cut again. Yeah, he's not happy. He's not happy about that. He's not happy. Yep. He's not happy about that. But anyway, continuing on, let's talk about the Indiana Fever. All right. So the Indiana Fever is a new look team. This is a team that looks very, very different than they did last year. They look very, very, very different than last year, and that's a good thing. They're a team that originally came into training camp with a 15-man roster. They do have to get that down to in total by the deadline. They have to get that down to 12 players on their roster, and for the first time in a long time, I'm seeing people pay attention to the Indiana Fever. The Indiana Fever was a team that no one truly cared about since the retirement of Tamika Catchings. Tamika Catchings was a player who made Indiana relevant and interesting and exciting. But after she retired as a player, people weren't checking for Indiana. But now you see a lot of stuff about the Indiana Fever. Indiana Fever, they have some really good players. Last year they weren't very good. They weren't very good in the grand scheme of things, but in terms of for Indiana, they were good last year. For their standard, they were good last year. They barely missed the playoffs, which was a good thing because that got them to get Caitlin Clark. So that was good. But yeah, they're looking to build, and they're looking to find players that sort of supplement the big name players that they already have. Right? You already have Leah Boston, former number 1 pick. You have Caitlin Clark, the current number 1 pick. You have Nalissa Smith, the former number 2 pick. Right? You have Kelsey Mitchell, straight up baller. Like you have lots of talent on the squad, and it's about seeing who sort of complements that and having the decision made from there in terms of who actually makes the roster. You need people who supplement what this team can already do, what the top name players for this team can already do. All right, so let's look at who is currently on the roster for the Indiana Fever. They have Grace Berger, Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, Damiris Dantas, Timmy Fag Binley, Lexi Hull, Kelsey Mitchell, Katie Lou Samuelson, Victoria Saxton, Nalissa Smith, Celeste Taylor, Christy Wallace, Erica Wheeler. All right, so those are the players on the squad for the Indiana Fever. They do have to cut that down. I believe I talked about this yesterday, but I do believe they're going to cut Victoria Saxton. I think she's a player that is going to get cut from the squad. I mean, a lot of people like Victoria Saxton, but ultimately, I don't think she makes the roster. Ultimately, okay. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. Oh, Beck Allen just got 3 fouls. Wow. What is guys? What is going on in this game? You got lots of players who are in pretty big foul trouble. Very big foul trouble. That's interesting. Guys, also a thing to note is that they did cut, as I talked about earlier, they did cut Maya Caldwell and Leilani Correa. They did cut those players. So I do think that the final person that they need to cut, that they will cut, is going to be Victoria Saxton. All right, and I think once they get rid of, or I shouldn't say it like that, once they cut Victoria Saxton, I think they should be good in terms of having enough players. So again, let's just sort of count this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah. Because yesterday, both Lilani and Maya were on the roster. And yesterday I talked about them cutting 3 players. Now they cut 2 of them already. The last one that will get cut, in my opinion, is Victoria Saxton. So they will be down to 12 players, and they will be good to go. So this will be your final roster, in my opinion, for the Indiana Fever, with the exception of Victoria Saxton. There was a lot of talk about, is Celeste Taylor going to make the roster or not? I do believe Celeste Taylor makes the roster. I believe defensively, she's exactly what they need. And also she does have offensive game as well. But really they're going to need her defense, especially from the guard position. And so I think having her on this team makes a lot of sense. So to me, this is the final roster for the Indiana Fever, with the exception of Victoria Saxton, who in my opinion will get cut. All right, let's talk about my Chicago Sky. Because y'all know I got to talk about them, right? Y'all know I got to talk about them. So, the Chicago Sky, they're a team with a lot of new faces, like a lot. Like when I say a lot of new faces, I mean a lot of new faces. From the coach on down, we are a brand new team. We only have 3 players who played like sizable minutes last year on our team. So we have Elizabeth Williams, who returns. You have Dana Evans, who returns. You have Marina Mabry, who returns. I say 3 main players because while Isabel Harrison was on the team last year, she never even played a game because she got hurt in preseason. So that's why I say it's really, technically it's 4, but it's really 3 players returning last year who actually played sizable minutes for the Chicago Sky. So this is a brand spanking new team that we're dealing with. And so a lot of players were invited to camp, and it was about trying to figure out, okay, well, what works? What mix of players are going to work? This team is going to be able to have 12 players on the roster. So financially, that's not a problem for them. And so it's about figuring out who's the right mix of those 12 players that you want on the squad. So currently we have Lindsay Allen, Camila Cardozo, Kennedy Carter, Diamond DeShields, Dana Evans, Kaiser Gondrzik, Isabel Harrison, Marina Mabry, Brenna Maxwell, Michaela Onyenwede, Angel Reese, Brianna Turner, and Elizabeth Williams. So those are the players on the team. Right now, we are 1 over. We have 13 players on the roster. We do have to get that down to 12 players. And so I believe that the player who is going to get cut is Kaiser. I believe Kaiser is going to be the player who gets cut. Yes, Kaiser can shoot. We saw that in the game against the New York Liberty. Kaiser can shoot. She can hit those threes. She can score some basketball. But I think that there is an incentive to keep Brenna Maxwell, who's the 3rd player that the Sky drafted this year. There's an incentive to keep her because if you watch Brenna Maxwell in college for Gonzaga, you know how great of a quick trigger she has. She's one of those players who can roll off a screen and go straight into a 3 and drain it, right? It's hard to do. I think the upsides that she brings is huge. And so I think we're gonna see Kaiser get cut. And they're gonna keep Brenna Maxwell. And everything else will stay. So that's my opinion. Thank you so much, Booker B, for the super chat. Says Camilla said she will be back before the 4 to 6 weeks. Oh, she did? Oh, okay. I did see her working with Teaspoon today. I saw her working with Teaspoon today. So we'll see when she's able to come back. But yeah, I think this guy keeps Brenna Maxwell and they get rid of Kaiser. Though I like Kaiser, I really do. I think she has a lot of talent, and I think she's a player who should have a spot in the WNBA. But just the way things are working, the way that there's only 12 spots per team, like it just doesn't look likely that she's going to make the roster, which is unfortunate, but that's a thing. That's a thing. All right, so talked about the Dream, talked about the Fever. Who we talking about next? We gonna talk about the Washington Mystics. All right, let's talk about the Washington Mystics. So the Washington Mystics is a team that also is gonna look very different. last year to this year. The reason being is because two of their best players in Natasha Cloud and Elena Deladon are not with the team. So that is a huge loss for the squad, and that's something that they're going to have to deal with and try to have to figure out like what a pathway forward is for this team. And yeah, something they're going to have to work through, right? I do believe they are able to have all 12 spots. They're able to have all 12 spots filled. So yeah, let's get into it. So let's talk about the Washington Mystics roster. Here's what we have right now. Ariel Atkins, Shakira Austin, Jakia Brown-Turner, Alyssa Cunane, Stephanie Dolson, Aaliyah Edwards, Emily Ensler, Maisha Hines-Allen, Dee Richards, Carly Samuelson, Brittany Sykes, Gonzaga's own Kayleen. Hold on. Okay. Julie Van Loo, Shatori Walker Kimbrough. So right now, they have 13 players on the squad. They do have to drop that down for one player. So I think it's I think this one's going to be kind of hard because there's a player that I want them to keep that I think they probably will cut, but I don't want them to get cut. So here's the deal, guys. Here's the deal. This Washington Mystics team is trying to figure out what is their identity, who are they, what can they do well, and how will they look going forward. And I think it's likely that they will have to cut Gonzaga's own. They'll have to cut Kayleen Trong. They'll have to cut her. I think she's gonna get cut. I don't want her to get cut. I really want her to make this team, but I don't think she makes it. I think she's the player who gets cut from the squad, and everybody else stays because they just need to cut one player. I think she gets cut. Again, guys, I think she's a good player. I think they're gonna cut Kayleen, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Don says, I think Quita is misreading the T. The Sky are playing a minimum of 3 guards / wings on the floor at once, if not 4. They'll be carrying 7 guards / wings. Angel will be playing 30 plus minutes. You're saying that I'm misreading the idea that Kaiser's gonna get cut. I don't think I am, but yeah, we'll see. I am. It is like I've been wrong before, so I think I think we'll see. We will see, but yeah. CAC, sorry, I feel like she's gonna get cut. Again, I hope she doesn't. I really hope she doesn't. But yeah, Kiki Herbert Harrigan is Kiki Herbert Harrigan. But anyway, speaking of, actually, let's talk about the Phoenix Mercury. All right, let's take a look at we talked about Kiki Herbert Harrigan, or people were talking about her in the chat. She's doing well today. She's doing very well today. Let's talk about the players on the Phoenix Mercury. So let's talk about it. So we have a very brand new, well, not a brand new. We got some added pieces to this team. Quite a few added pieces to this team. And so we gotta talk about it. You of course you return Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner, but you add some huge players, and we're really gonna see what this team can actually do. So we get Beck Allen, who was previously with the Conneticut Sun, Amy Atwell, Morgan Birch, Natasha Cloud, Kalia Copper, Sophie Cunningham, Brittany Griner, Ariel Hearn, Kiki Herbert Harrigan, Maya Hollingshed, Natasha Mack, Bella Marcatete, Charisma Osborne, Jazz Shelley, Sug Sutton, Diana Taurasi, and Kristen. It's a lot of people on their roster. That's 17 people on their roster. And that means a lot of people got to get cut. That's what that means. That's what that means. That means a lot of people on this roster has to get cut. And let's just sort of talk about who I think is going to get cut. Because this team can only have 11 players. They can only have 11 players on this roster. 11. That's it. The reason why is because you have bloated salaries. Not in terms of the salary cap. You have Dennis Taurasi, who has a huge salary. You have Brittany Griner. Takes up a lot. So yeah, we're gonna see a small team. We're gonna see a small team for the Phoenix Mercury. So let's get into it. Let's get into the players who for sure I think are going to stay on the team. Okay, because it's easier actually to talk about the players who are going to stay on the team than people are going to go. Okay, so first, Beck Allen for sure staying on the team. Natasha Cloud for sure staying on the team. Clea Copper, yes, staying on the team. Sophie Cunningham, yes. Brittany Griner, yes. Kiki Herbert Harrigan, yes. Bella Marquetete, yes. Jazz Shelley, I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe not. Silk Sutton, yes. Dana Taurasi, yes. There are two other players that will make the squad. I think it's probably going to be another power forward type of player, and then another guard. Now, specifically who that is, I am not really sure. I think it's possible that it's between a Morgan Birch or Natasha Mack, who maybe we'll battle it out for a 4 position. But to be honest with you, I am not really sure who the last two people really are. It depends. Like, are you going to? It depends on what the strategy is. Like, I think they need to keep one of the rookies. I think they need to keep one of the rookies. Will they? I don't know. I think that's the hard part for the Phoenix Mercury is because they only have 11 roster spots. That's all they have. And so when you're talking about who makes it, I don't know. It feels kind of tough. And today, I think today is going to tell. At the end of the day, we're gonna know who's going to make the roster. I mean, the game is still happening, so I think it's still pretty fluid in terms of like who actually is going to make this roster. But yeah, I think it's going to be tough, because so far, like it's a close one. Is Natasha Mack gonna make the final roster? Possibly. If she can get some points on the board today, and put some good minutes in, it's possible. And then the question is, once you have that other 4, which may be Natasha Mack, now you just need another guard, and I don't know who that guard is going to be. I really don't. I think today is going to decide that, right? I think today is going to decide that. So yeah, that's my thing. With the Phoenix Mercury, I don't know who that last person is. I don't know who that 11th person is to make the roster. I know for sure it's going to be a guard, but who specifically? I don't know. I feel like it's very tough. And we're gonna have to see the second half of this Phoenix game. I think we're gonna have to see the second half of this Phoenix game to actually be able to know who's gonna make the roster or not. All right, talking about the LA Sparks, they are a different team as well. Some new talent on the squad, and we're gonna see what the LA Sparks can do. They still have a relatively newish coach. Kurt Miller was previously with the Conneticut Sun. Now he's with the LA Sparks, trying to build that sort of defensive mentality. But the personnel is very different. The LA Sparks is one of those teams that I find kind of confusing because I don't really know their identity. Their identity used to be forged in the paint with post players. It was Lisa Leslie, then it was Candace Parker, then it was Nneka Ogwumike, and now they're all Nneka's gone. And so it's about trying to create that new identity through, for the most part, through Cameron Brink, And so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, this is a new team that's trying to figure out what they're going to do in the future. Let's continue on. Let's talk about the LA Sparks. So we have Julie Allemon, Monique Billings, Cameron Brink, Lexi Brown, Ray Burrell, Lazy Clarendon, Nia Clouden, Zayat Cook, Blake Dietrich, Mackenzie Forbes, De'Arica Hamby, Rakia Jackson, Ari McDonald, Kia Nurse, Azurá Stevens, Stephanie Talbot, Lee Giroux. Similar to the Phoenix Mercury, this team has a lot of players. 17 players to be exact. Quite a few players are on this roster, and there's going to be quite a few cuts that have to be made. The good news about the LA Sparks is that they can have 12 players, I believe. I believe they can have 12 players on their roster. Yes, there's going to be cuts, but there's only 5 cuts that has to be made instead of 6. So that's something. That is something. All right, let's talk about the players who are going to make the roster. All right, so I think it's likely going to be Cameron Brink, of course, Kia Nurse, De'Arica Hamby, Lexi Brown, who I'm very happy to see is healthy this year, Lazy Clarendon, Rakia Jackson, Ari McDonald. I think it's a battle between her and Zayat Cook, and I think Ari's. It's her and Zayat Cook sort of battling it out. I do think Ari makes the squad. I think Lee Giroux also makes the squad. Stephanie Talbot makes the squad. Zayat Cook makes the squad as well. And the question is, who else makes it? Ray Burrell probably makes it. And now I think there's just, Azurá Stevens is of course going to be on the team, but she's hurt. She's hurt right now. But ultimately that's where you're going to finish it. That's the 12 players. I think I went through all 12, right? Yeah. Azurá Stevens, Ray Burrell, Zayat Cook, Lee Giroux, Stephanie Talbot, Ari McDonald, Rakia Jackson, Lazy Clarendon, Cameron Brink, De'Arica Hamby, Lexi Brown, and Kia Nurse. Yeah, so I think those are the players who are going to make this roster, in my opinion, right now at least. All right, let's continue on. Right. So the thing about the Seattle Storm is they're a new look team. Lots of new players on the squad. Lots of key new players on the squad. And guys, because of the quality of players that they have, and because of the tenure of the players, that means that they only can have 11 players on the roster. So Seattle is going to have to cut because they can only have 11 players. So that's going to be tough for the squad. But they do have a lot of tenure, a lot of talent on their squad. So I think ultimately they'll be fine. But they can only have 11 players, which is going to be tough for the 12th player who's going to get cut. All right, so here's who they have on the roster right now. Skylar Diggins-Smith, Dulcie Fonkum, Mendeju, Joyner Holmes, Jordan Horston, Jewel Lloyd, Ezzy Magmagor, Jade Melbourne, Nika Muhl, Nneka Ogwumike, Mercedes Russell, Victoria Vivians, Sammy Whitcomb, and Kiana Williams. So they do need to cut 2 players from the roster, and so that's going to be a tough-ish move, and there's going to be a lot of fans who are going to be upset about this roster. So FM says, why only 11? So here's the deal with the way salary cap works. With the way the salary cap works is players, basically the older players you have, the less likely it is that you're going to be able to have 12 players on your roster. Because older players means more tenure, means more salary that you have to pay them, which means if you have a lot of them on your team, yes, of course, they're very good, but still, if you have a lot of them on your team, that means you're going to hit that salary cap earlier, which means that you cannot likely have 12 players on your roster. So it's a salary cap issue, and unfortunately, that's the result of getting way better, getting players like Nika and Skylar to join your team. Like that was what brought them over. Nika and Skylar and Jewel Lloyd are getting paid a lot of money. In the grand scheme of things, outside of the WNBA, not a ton. It's going to be more once the CBA gets renegotiated. But in terms of the salary cap, it's a very sizable hit on the salary cap. So that's in 3 players right there, and then you have to pay everybody else. So that means that they're going to have 11 players for the season. So they do have to cut 2 players. Now the question is, okay, well, what 2 players are they going to cut? Like who's getting cut from this squad? And I will say that you guys may not like the result of who gets cut. But let's just sort of talk about like the people who are for sure going to actually no, it's actually probably easier to talk about the players who I think are actually going to get cut than the players who are going to actually make the roster. So in terms of who's getting cut, I think we're going to see Kiana Williams get cut. I think she's a good player. I think she's a player who can shoot. But I think she gets cut. Again, not great. I think she has some talent. She can be a really good player in the WNBA, but I think it's possible that she will get cut. Now on to another player that I think is possible that they get cut is Jade Melbourne. So Jade Melbourne, it's sort of hard for her because she actually got a concussion, so she's not even with the team right now, and I think that hurts a player trying to make it through training camp if you can't even play because you're on concussion protocol. I think that both Jade and Kiana end up getting cut from this team. I am saying that Nika Muhl will make the team. And the reason why is because I think that Seattle sees her as their future point guard once Skylar Diggins is done. And so while in terms of just sheer points, yeah, Kiana Williams can score more points than Nika Muhl. But in terms of like the future of the team, like thinking about the Seattle Storm in years in the future, I think they see a future with Nika Muhl as their starting point guard eventually in the future. And because of that, I think she stays on the team. So I think she stays on the team. So that's my thoughts. I mean, you guys, there's probably going to be some people who disagree with my opinions about that, but yeah, I do think she stays on the team because of that, because they do see her as the future, even though from a just point scoring perspective, Williams is going to give you more points than Nika will, but overall, I think they see the future, and that's why they're going to keep her, in my opinion. Okay, so the New York Liberty is another team that has a lot of players, older players getting a sizable amount of the money. So they are only able to have an 11-man roster. Okay, they started off training camp with 18 people on their training camp squad. 18 people. They had to get that down to 11. And they still got a lot more cuts. They got a lot of cuts to do, a lot. So we're gonna talk about it. Okay, this is a team that won the Commissioner's Cup last year. This is a team that was in the finals last year, almost had a chance to win, but ultimately didn't close it out against the Las Vegas Aces. And now it's sort of now or never. It's like now or never for this team to make something happen. Really. All right, so let's talk about the players who are currently on the team. Okako Quita Kennedy Burke, Jessica Carter, Marquisha Davis, Ivana Jokic, Leilani Feebach, Brianna Frazier, Rita Sabrina Ionescu, Jonquil Jones, Benija Laney Hamilton, Esmery Martinez, Stephanie Mawali, Naria Sabli. I was about to say Satu Sabli. Naria Sabli, her sister, Jalen Sherrod, Brianna Stewart, Kayla Thornton, and Courtney Vandersloot. So this team they have a lot of people who are still on this roster. Okay, a lot of people who are still on this roster for this team, and they have to get that. They got to get that number down. Got to get it down to 11. So I think it's gonna be easier for me to talk through the players who I think are gonna make it than it is to talk about the players who I think are gonna get cut. All right, let's talk about the players. Let's talk about who's going to actually make the roster, which is it's kind of hard to make this roster because it's a lot of players. So let's talk about the players who are for sure going to make it. Of course, Brianna Stewart, Jonquil Jones, Benija Laney Hamilton, Sabrina Ionescu, Courtney Vandersloot is going to make the roster. I know there's a lot of conversation about Courtney Vandersloot in the chat. We gonna talk about it. But yeah, I think she makes the roster. Kayla Thornton is going to make the roster. Now here's the thing, guys. As Mary Martinez, I think is going to make it. I think Marquisha Davis makes the roster. I think Marquisha Davis has played very well. In comparison to her teammates, I think she's played very well, and so I do think she deserves a roster spot. And so yeah, there's a lot of talk in the comments about Maureen Johannes. Maureen Johannes is not on the squad. She's not on the squad right now. So yeah. But anyway, let's continue to talk about players who I think are going to make the roster. I think Naria Sabali is going to make the roster. But she didn't dress for the last game. She didn't dress for the Chicago game either. But yeah. So now you just need 2 more players on this team. I think you need a post player and you need another guard-ish player. And in terms of like who are the final 2 players who are actually going to make this roster, here's the thing. Here's the thing, guys. I think it is very possible that I think it's very possible that we see the New York Liberty try to make something happen right before the rosters are final. I think it's very much possible that they wait. I think it's possible that they wait until a day before everything gets finalized and they pick people up off of waivers and then they cut the rest of the team. Because I can't think of definitive some like the final 2 spots. Like I don't know who they pick because I feel like this team is kind of screwed. This New York Liberty team is kind of screwed. Like the position that they're in is not a good one. I think they made a severe misstep by not drafting Nika Muhl. Severe. Because Courtney Vandersloot is not the same Courtney Vandersloot as she used to be. She's not. And I think it would have made sense to draft a player like Nika Muhl and have her sort of work to be in that leadership position as a point guard. They didn't do that. And ultimately that's fine because Marquisha Davis is really good. And I think for sure she's making the squad because she's shown that she can make some stuff happen. But this team is just, they're in a bad spot. Like what's the exact future for this team? Yes, absolutely. You have a baller in Brianna Stewart. You do. Stewie is fantastic. She is. We talk about Sabrina Ionescu. Love her or hate her, she can ball. Jonquil Jones can ball. Benija Laney Hamilton can ball. But outside of that, is going to be hard for this team. So I have 9 players for sure making the squad for the New York Liberty, and the other 2, I don't know. I think they're gonna wait for waivers and then see who gets cut and try to go from there. Dev says at first I didn't see the vision with Jalen, but she should definitely make it. I think Jalen Sherrod has shown them that she can do some damage. You know, she can play some defense. She can. She's persistent, and I think she's shown that she can score. Is that enough to make the final roster? I'm not sure. Like, again, guys, I said I'm pretty solid on 9 players, and Marquisha Davis is on that 9. Jalen Sherrod is not. I think it is possible that she makes it, but I also think it's very possible that they wait until waivers, and if there's somebody better that they think that comes up on waivers at that guard spot, they're cutting Jalen Sherrod and getting that person off a waiver. So yeah, I'm a little non-committal in terms of the final roster for the. Am I saying Gerard? I thought I was saying Sherrod. Yeah, Jalen Sherrod. Or wait, am I saying that wrong? I don't think I was saying it wrong. Anyway. Let's see. Michaela says they're gonna miss Maureen Johannes. Yes, they're already missing her. They're already missing her. Yes, they really are. Aiden says I think Sloot should retire. I agree. And guys, I'm a huge Sloot fan. Huge. I really like Courtney Vandersloot. I think what she's done for the Chicago Sky, I think has been great. But maybe after this year, maybe it's over. Like I think it's important for players to leave before they're like done. But yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts about that. Now, guys, she just didn't come to the U.S. Yeah, she didn't sign with the U.S. team. If she wanted to, the New York Liberty would get them for sure. Larry says their guards can't defend. That's why it probably would have been a good idea to draft Nika Muhl. But but anyway, that is the New York Liberty. All right, let's get into it. So this Conneticut Sun team is also a new look team. They have a player or a former player, now coach, in Stephanie White, who is trying to take the reins of this team who has been historically good into a championship winning team. Now, when you look at the Conneticut Sun, they are a team that likely, very, very likely, will also only be able to have 11 players on their squad because they do have a lot of players with a lot of seasons under them. And so yeah, you're going to likely have a 11-man roster for this Connecticut Sun team going forward. They are a team that they're sort of core in Alyssa Thomas, Duana Bonner, Brianna Jones, and it's about figuring out who kind of helps supplement that, and who sort of helps to amplify what their core players already do. And that's the question. Who can you get on your final roster to help complement what this team is all about? All right, that's the goal, is to just complement those core 3 players. Now let's sort of talk about this roster, right? Because again, they do have a lot of new faces on the roster. You have Rachel Banham, Duana Bonner, Dejanay Kerrigan, Queen Egbo, Tyasha Harris, Mariah Jefferson, Brianna Jones, Tiffany Mitchell, Astu Dufall, Olivia Nelson Adota, Alyssa Thomas, Sydney Weiss, and Jocelyn Willoughby. So 13 players on the squad. They do have to get that down to 10, or not 10. I'm sorry. They have to get that down to 11. And let's sort of talk about the cuts that they're going to have to make, because they're going to have to make two cuts. All right, they have to make 2 cuts, and I think they've already made some cuts already. I think they made some cuts like yesterday or whatever. But yeah, they made some cuts already. They need 2 more down, and let's just sort of talk about who I think is going to get cut. So when we when we talk about this roster, I think someone who is sort of a bubble player that I think has a potential to get cut is Mariah Jefferson. Mariah Jefferson is out right now. I think she's a good player, but ultimately, I really don't know if they keep her. And the reason why I say that is because yes, she is a point guard, and yes, it would be very helpful to have her on this roster. But this Connecticut Sun team, their point guard is, their point guard is Alyssa Thomas. Alyssa Thomas is basically their point guard. So they don't necessarily need a true point guard. Yes, it would be great to have Mariah Jefferson, absolutely. But I wonder if they decide, you know what, let's just go with Alyssa Thomas, and let's just try to run point by committee. Of course, having a player like Mariah Jefferson would be crucial for them, but I feel like it's possible that they don't keep her. I really do think that's possible, but I don't know. I could be wild on that opinion, but that's my thought right now, is that she possibly gets cut. Another person that I think might actually get cut is possibly a Jocelyn Willoughby. It's sort of like, maybe. But the thing about this team is that from a forward perspective, I think they're pretty solid, right? You got Dejanay Kerrigan, who is going to for sure be the player who is just Dejanay is gonna have a great. Oh my goodness! I think she's gonna have a good year. And I wonder if you do get rid of a player like a Jocelyn Willoughby, and you see what else can happen. But yeah, I don't know. Those are my thoughts about the Connecticut Sun. Let me know how crazy y'all think my opinions are. But I think it's possible that they wind up just saying forget it about a point guard and getting rid of Mariah Jefferson, and just saying, hey, our point guard is Alyssa Thomas, because Alyssa Thomas is their point guard. Alyssa Thomas is their everything. She really is. She really is their everything. FM says Ty Harris is in. I think Ty Harris makes the roster. Yep. And guys, if y'all get that like button, that would be fantastic. That would be absolutely freaking fantastic. All right. Thank you. Guys, we're almost down through the list. I'm getting very, very tired. All right, let's talk about the Aces. Let's talk about the Las Vegas Aces. The Aces, because Candace Parker has retired, I believe they do have the salary cap to hold 12 players. So it's likely that this will be the final roster for the Las Vegas Aces. Again, if this is not final, Deasia Fair or Kate Martin could get cut. Is it likely at this point? No. I do think they're going to make the roster ultimately. But we'll see. We'll ultimately see what happens. But yeah, I do think they'll make the roster. So sorry about that. False alarm, guys. The salary cap is in a way where now they should be able to have 12 players on the roster because you don't have Candace Parker on the books anymore. All right, let's continue on. All right, let's talk about the Dallas Wings. The Dallas Wings is a team that has a still newest coach, and they're trying to make some stuff work, right? They did come into training camp with 15 players. They can have 12 players on their roster, or actually, I think they had 16 players actually on their roster at the start of training camp. But yeah, anyway, let's talk about some of the players on their team, and also a thing to note that is very, very important about this Dallas Wings team is that Satou Sabally actually will miss the entire first half of the season due to a shoulder injury that she has. So huge loss for the squad. But yeah, Satou Sabally will be missing the first half of the season due to injury. So something to note. So here are the players on their team. You have Kalani Brown, Jaylen Brown, Veronica Burton, Natasha Howard, Lou Lopez Sinisal, Tierra McCowan, Enrique Ogunbowale, Satu Sabli, J.C. Sheldon, Maddie Segrist, Stephanie Soares, and Svigi Unen. I forgot how to pronounce her name. My apologies on that. So 13 players on the roster. You have to cut that down. You got to cut that down to 12 players. And so the question is, okay, well, what players ultimately do you have on this roster? So the tough part about this Dallas team is that they only had one preseason game. So that's all we really have to work off of. And it's sort of hard for me to really say who's going to make this roster. And the reason why I think it's hard to say is because, Lou Lopez Sinisal didn't play in that first and only game for Dallas. And so for me, Dallas is a little bit, I don't know who ultimately makes the team. They have to cut one player, and I think, and I think the player that they end up cutting is either going to be Sevgi Unen or Lou Lopez Sinisal. It's one of those players who are going to get cut. It's hard to truly say because Lou Lopez Sinisal did not play in that one and only game. So it's between them two. Who are going to get cut, in my opinion, and I think ultimately we'll see. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on that. It's between two players who are going to get cut, two guards that are going to get cut, and so I'm not quite sure because again, with both Vegas and Dallas, well, Vegas technically doesn't even have a real preseason game because they're playing against Puerto Rico, not another WNBA team, and Dallas only played one game. Chelsea says, "Is Lou still injured?" I think technically she's off the injury list. She was labeled as a did not play for the game against Indiana. So for that Indiana game, I think she was able to play, but they just didn't play her. I think. I feel like I'm right on that, but I'll fact check myself and see what's going on with her. Actually, let me just fact check myself real quick. I want to make sure I'm not spreading any misinformation. Yeah, I don't see any still injury news. So I think she's good. I think she's healthy. Hufflepuff United says, I love that name, says, will teams be making roster cuts over the weekend? Likely, yeah. They likely will be making cuts over the weekend. Yep. All right, let's talk about the Minnesota Lynx. And who's on their roster. All right, so we have Bridget Carlton, Nafisa Collier, Natisha Heidemann, Dorka Juhas, Sika Kone, Kayla McBride, Diamond Miller, Alyssa Peely, Alana Smith, Taylor Soule, Cameron Taylor, Kayana Traylor, Courtney Williams, Cecilia Zandalasini, there we go, Olivia Espolpa, I believe that's how you pronounce it. But anyway, they have 3 cuts they need to make. And here is who I think is actually going to make the final roster for this squad. And Sean Murphy Bunting is at the Phoenix game. I just heard an announcement about it in my ear. In my ear, I have the game on, so I just heard it. All right. Let's talk about the Minnesota Lynx. So, I think that this squad is looking to get small, right? Because we saw them cut. They recently announced that they cut Ruthie Hebert from the squad, and to me that makes it be like, oh man, no one's really safe on this squad. No one is really safe on this squad. in terms of who's actually gonna make the team. Um, Aiden says Kobe White was at the Sky game. Yep, I saw him. Yep, he was there. And then the um, the Bears first the Bears three draft picks from this year's draft. They were all there, including our new QB1. Was at the Sky game. Yep, it's good to see athletes supporting other athletes. I think that's pretty good to see. All right, let's talk about the players who are gonna get cut. I think Kiana Traylor, I want her to make the roster, but I don't think she makes the roster. I want her to. I don't think she makes it. All right. Another player that I think is going to have a tough time making it is Cameron Taylor. I think she's gonna have a tough time making the squad also. Ultimately, we will see if she actually makes it. And then after that, to me, it's between two players. It's between likely. I think it depends on how the Minnesota Lynx want to go forward. Do they want to go shorter and keep somebody like Olivia Epopa, or I forgot how, Olivia E. Do you keep somebody like that, or do you keep a player like a Taylor Soul who has a huge amount of potential, but just hasn't really gotten that opportunity in the W? Who do you go for? I think that's the question for this Minnesota Lynx team. Who do you go for? But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on that. I don't know. I don't know who they wind up keeping. Yeah, I think that's the hard part. I think that's the hard part for them. It's like who ultimately who do you keep? I would probably say Taylor Soul stays and Olivia gets cut. So it'd be Celeste, or not Celeste. It'd be Kiana Traylor, Cameron Taylor, and Olivia who gets cut, I think. But we'll see. Ultimately, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyway, guys, that is the long video. That is the stream. I think I am done after this. That was sort of my thoughts about some of the players who I think are going to make the roster and some players who I don't think is going to make the roster. Ultimately, we don't know. We won't know until it becomes official. All right. And again, guys, I do want to make sure you all are aware of this. Here's the date that you all need to know. Right. This is the date. Okay. Final regular season cut down happens on May 13th. The regular season begins on May 14th. So that's when we'll know. May 13th is when we'll know what is happening in terms of who is actually going to make the roster. Okay. So hopefully this was helpful. If it was, please hit that like button. That would be absolutely, positively, freaking fantastic. Thank you in advance for that. Hit that like button on y'all way out. Hit that subscribe button if you have not subscribed to the channel already. And guys, let people know that we own this channel. We doing the stuff that you don't see a lot of people do. A lot of people, yeah, sure, they're gonna go through teams and they're gonna talk about the main teams, and that's pretty much gonna be it. But we just went through every single team in the WNBA, and I let you all know who I thought was gonna make the roster. All right, so and I sort of tried to give y'all a little bit of information about each team. If y'all appreciated that, let somebody else know that I did this so they could check this video out for themselves. All right, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Have a fantastic weekend, guys. I will be back right here with some awesome content on Sunday. And yeah, hopefully you all will look out for that. Also, me and my mom will be making some videos in the coming future. She's very excited about it. So we're going to be making some great content. I have some announcements I'll be announcing on the channel very, very soon. So I hope you all are excited about that. The folks on Patreon got the first glimpse of it, and it's pretty exciting, I think. So I can't wait for you all to engage with me on that. Anyway, guys, I appreciate y'all. Have a fantastic night. And until next time, guys, bye, y'all.